Out on open water, a U.S. carrier strike group doesn't just appear, it arrives. And the ocean changes temperament when it does. Deck crews move with the rhythm of launch and recovery. Radar scopes bloom with friendly returns. And somewhere beyond the horizon, aircraft are already in the stack, waiting for tasking. A CSG is not a single ship. It's a mobile joint force headquarters, built around 5 acres of sovereign U.S. territory that can sail. By design, every carrier strike group is slightly different, but the architecture is consistent. At the center sits the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier and its embarked air wing, about 70 aircraft when fully loaded. Orbiting that nucleus are 4 to 6 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, sometimes a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, an attack submarine running silent beneath, and the logistics ships that keep the whole formation fueled, armed, and fed. Together, roughly 7,500 sailors and aircrew turn steel and aviation fuel into presence, deterrence, and, if ordered, combat power. On paper, the Navy maintains 11 of these formations because the nation maintains 11 carriers, law and strategy aligned. In reality, deployments rotate. Maintenance cycles, workups, and training all dictate who's on station. As of fall 2025, 4 carrier groups are at sea, including CSG-12, built around USS Gerald R. Ford. The Ford's movement from the eastern Mediterranean toward the Caribbean underscores a simple truth about carrier warfare. Speed is not just measured in knots, it's measured in options. Reassigning even part of a CSG across theaters in days is a message to allies, adversaries, and anyone watching the maritime picture. The Ford Group shows the template. The carrier brings Carrier Air Wing 8, 7 squadrons tuned for the full spectrum of maritime operations. 3 FA-18EF strike fighter squadrons carry the heaviest punch: anti-ship, air-to-air, and long-range precision against targets inland. An EA-18G Growler squadron suppresses and deceives hostile sensors, blinding radars and severing communications to clear corridors for the strike package. MH-60R hunts submarines and surface raiders. MH-60S moves cargo, pulls survivors from the water, and keeps a lifeline between decks and shore. C-2A brings the mail, parts, and people that keep the tempo high.
Tempo matters. On the right day, with the right sea state, a Ford-class deck can push a launch every 45 seconds. Sustained operations target roughly 160 sorties per day. Search capacity can drive beyond 270. That's not theory. That's a flying, fighting schedule that denies an enemy windows of opportunity. It's also the core reason a carrier is more than a symbol. When the order goes, this air wing turns intent into effect across thousands of square miles. The escorts make that possible and extended. Aegis destroyers layer area air defense with SM-2, SM-6, reach out with Tomahawk when land targets must be hit at range, and fence the formation from cruise missiles, drones, and fast attack craft. Beneath the surface, an attack submarine stalks threats no radar can see, holding hostile subs and high-value ships at risk with heavyweight torpedoes. The logistics ships are the quiet heroes. Underway replenishment keeps jet fuel, missiles, and food flowing so the strike group doesn't have to pause where it's not welcome. Doctrine gives that mass focus. The Navy's mission set is straightforward and unforgiving: gain and sustain maritime superiority, project power ashore, and support joint operations. In practice, that means a carrier group can secure sea lanes, enforce blockades, provide air defense for a region, conduct strikes without host nation basing, coordinate humanitarian relief after a storm, or simply anchor a crisis response so diplomats have room to work. It is a sovereign toolkit that sails where it must and lingers as long as required. Critics are not wrong about the risk. Modern anti-ship missiles, unmanned swarms, and hypersonic threats complicate the calculus. But carriers endure because flexibility endures. The same deck that interdicts smugglers today can contest an airspace tomorrow. The same escorts that screen a humanitarian corridor can fuse a joint fires network when the weather turns kinetic. And the same submarine that quietly watches the approaches can end a threat long before it finds a firing solution. From World War II's island campaigns to the Red Sea's high-end air defense fight, one pattern holds. When the world tilts, carrier strike groups are often first on scene and last to leave. They arrive with their own air force, their own missile defense, their own logistics backbone, and a political message written in gray hull numbers. We're here, we can reach, and we can stay.
But in an age of drones, hypersonics, and satellite eyes watching every ocean, can even the mightiest carrier group remain untouchable? At its core, a carrier strike group isn't built just to exist, it's built to act. When Washington gives the order, it can project force anywhere on Earth within days. The true measure of a CSG's power isn't its size or cost, it's what happens when that floating city of steel begins to move as one. The real muscle of the carrier lies in its air wing. On the USS Gerald R. Ford, Carrier Air Wing 8 operates as a compact air force. 3 strike fighter squadrons of FA-18 Super Hornets handle both offensive and defensive missions, dogfighting enemy aircraft, hunting warships, or striking command posts hundreds of miles inland. Each aircraft can carry up to 18,000 pounds of ordnance, precision-guided bombs, air-to-air missiles, anti-ship harpoons, or standoff cruise weapons. From launch to recovery, the deck cycles with clockwork precision. Every jet that catapults into the sky adds another piece to a layered web of power projection. But a carrier's air wing doesn't fight blind. Above it, E-2D advanced Hawkeyes scan the battle space with radar domes that can detect threats hundreds of miles away, tracking aircraft, missiles, or even small patrol boats. They act as airborne command posts, feeding live targeting data to ships, strike packages, and ground stations via Link 16 and cooperative engagement capability networks. Supporting them are the EA-18G Growlers, electronic warfare aircraft that specialize in turning the enemy's battlefield into static. Their jammers blind hostile radars, disrupt enemy communications, and create false targets, clearing corridors through contested airspace. When Growlers lead the strike, enemy air defenses go dark before they even realize they've been engaged. Below, MH-60R Seahawks hunt submarines and surface ships. They deploy dipping sonars and torpedoes to track any underwater intruder that dares come close to the formation. Meanwhile, MH-60S variants handle logistics, search and rescue, and ship-to-shore resupply. Each flight is a moving part of a massive machine, one built to fight, sustain, and survive. With aerial refueling, the CSG's range expands beyond imagination. Super Hornets refueled midair by buddy tankers or KC-135s can reach targets over 1,000 miles away. And when surge tempo hits, the Ford can maintain 160 sorties a day, or up to 270 during high-intensity operations. That's a pace no other Navy on Earth can match.
Beyond the flight deck, the escorts transform the group into a multi-dimensional weapon. Arleigh Burke destroyers and cruisers use the Aegis combat system to detect, track, and destroy incoming missiles or aircraft long before they threaten the carrier. Their SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors create an aerial shield. Their Tomahawk cruise missiles reach over 1,000 miles, striking land targets with pinpoint accuracy. Beneath the waves, an attack submarine shadows the fleet, ready to engage hostile submarines or ships before they get within range. When it's time for action, all these layers, air, surface, subsurface, merge into a single command network. The CSG becomes a floating joint operations center, linking satellites, aircraft, destroyers, and submarines into one lethal coordinated grid. Whether it's humanitarian aid, surveillance, deterrence, or full-scale combat, the response time is measured in minutes, not hours. Every move, every launch, and every radar pulse broadcasts one message: presence with purpose. A carrier group doesn't need to fire to make a statement. Its very arrival changes the political temperature of an entire region. Yet, the same immense power that makes a CSG unstoppable also makes it a prime target. Rivals study it, shadow it, and design weapons specifically to challenge it. Anti-ship missiles, stealth submarines, and hypersonic weapons all aim for one question that has yet to be answered. If a single carrier group can project unmatched power across oceans, can any adversary truly stop it before it strikes first? To understand what a carrier strike group can do today, you have to see what it's already done. For over 8 decades, U.S. carriers have been the muscle behind American diplomacy. The first to arrive when a crisis erupts, and the last to leave when calm finally returns. In the early 2000s, before there were U.S. bases scattered across Central Asia, the USS Enterprise and USS Carl Vinson carried the first waves of combat into Afghanistan. When the towers fell and warplanes needed a launch point, they launched from the sea. In those opening months, over 70% of the sorties flown against Taliban and Al-Qaeda targets came from carrier decks stationed in the Arabian Sea. Those carriers operated without permission, without runways, without reliance on anyone but their own sailors. And they proved that global reach didn't require a foreign address.
Just 2 years later, during Operation Iraqi Freedom, 6 U.S. carriers operated across 3 different bodies of water. Their combined air wings unleashed the opening strikes of shock and awe, crippling Iraq's command and control in a matter of hours. The sky lit up with precision. Tomahawks launched from destroyers, FA-18s screaming across Baghdad, and electronic jammers cutting the Iraqi radar network into silence. That was the modern age of sea-based warfare: fast, coordinated, relentless. The same pattern repeated in every major flashpoint of the 21st century. In 2014, as ISIS seized territory across Iraq and Syria, it was the USS George H.W. Bush that launched the first strikes of Operation Inherent Resolve. Those early missions blunted the group's advance long before Allied air forces joined the fight. In 2019, as tensions rose with Iran, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group surged into the Arabian Sea, providing deterrence and overwatch as ballistic missiles rained near U.S. bases in Iraq. Then came 2023, when the USS Eisenhower Strike Group entered the Red Sea to protect international shipping lanes. Houthi missiles and drones turned that sea into a battlefield unseen since World War II. The Navy responded with precision intercepts, Tomahawk retaliations, and the kind of coordination that only decades of training can produce. It wasn't just war fighting, it was messaging. The U.S. Navy still owns the lanes that commerce depends on. And beyond the Middle East, the stage widened. In the South China Sea, American and Chinese carriers now operate within sight of each other. The USS Ronald Reagan and USS Nimitz patrol near the Spratly and Paracel Islands, their jets tracing mirrored arcs across contested skies, while Chinese flat tops Shandong and Liaoning maneuver nearby. It's a high-stakes chess match played in real time, a test of resolve measured in flight hours and wake turbulence. Every deployment, every surge, every exercise tells the same story. Carriers are not relics, they are relevance itself. They move diplomacy, deter aggression, and when needed, strike with surgical precision. And each time the U.S. Navy deploys one, adversaries take notice. Still, the question echoes in every war room and briefing across the globe. If history shows that carriers define modern warfare, will the next war redefine the carrier itself? When the USS Gerald R. Ford was reassigned from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, the message was unmistakable. Speed, reach, and flexibility still define American power. On paper, the move supported counter-narcotics and counter-terrorism under U.S. Southern Command. In practice, it shifted one of the most advanced war machines on Earth into a region already thick with bombers, destroyers, and Marines.
From its position near Puerto Rico and Guantanamo Bay, the Ford turned the Caribbean into a command center. Its sensors blanketed the skies. Its air wing gave the U.S. immediate reach across northern South America. The destroyers in its screen extended that power even farther. Aegis interceptors for defense, Tomahawks for precision strikes, and a stealth submarine below to enforce silent control of the sea. Together, they formed a self-contained strike network capable of everything from surveillance to rapid combat deployment. Strategically, the redeployment was as much about signal as security. Venezuela's rising tensions, narcotics routes, and expanding partnerships with rival powers had shifted Washington's attention southward. Pulling a carrier from Europe demonstrated how quickly the Navy could pivot global focus, while also reminding the world that the Atlantic and Caribbean remain American waters of influence. Few nations can move an entire strike group thousands of miles and have it combat ready the moment it arrives. But with that flexibility comes risk. Modern anti-ship missiles, long-range bombers, and drone swarms challenge even the Ford's layered defenses. Critics question whether $13 billion of floating firepower should be used against smugglers. Admirals counter that presence isn't about the target, it's about the message. A supercarrier's value lies in what it prevents, not what it destroys. The Ford's deployment shows that carriers aren't obsolete, they've evolved. They are deterrence, diplomacy, and disaster response wrapped in 5 acres of sovereign U.S. territory that can move at 30 knots. Wherever it sails, it changes the equation. But with that flexibility comes risk. As rival powers build their own carriers and new weapons threaten from every horizon, will America's floating cities remain the ultimate symbol of dominance or become the next great gamble of naval history?